Welcome everyone to Spoiler Warning. We have wrestling news and a lot of it, and my word is there a lot of it. We will be covering as our main story today the reasons behind all of the released wrestlers, all of the news that we have on that, including some of the reasons individually and some of the reasons en masse why releases are happening. In addition to that, we'll be talking the future of Damage Control and some continued concerns of other wrestlers. We'll be talking about Dave Meltzer and comments which are absolutely untrue and in no way helpful. We'll talk about some backlash by WWE long-term and Hall of Famers at WWE Unreal and why WWE are putting that one together. We have continued updates on the lawsuit against Vince McMahon and the WWE by Janelle Grant. This is going to get ugly before it gets better. Edge has commented that he was not a fan of the greatest wrestling match ever. We have news as to why, and of course what the WWE was going for, and I have some pretty significant rumour killers on Alberto Del Rio. His time in the WWE has not begun again, and there is plenty more to clarify on that to make sure you know exactly what's happening, because that's what we do here. As I'm about to get into all of the news on the releases, I just want to be very clear. What we do here is make sure you know what is actually going on. We don't do the hyperbole, we don't do the clickbait, we don't do the nonsense and the garbage. You ask me the questions, I give you the answer. Oh, we've already got a troll who clearly can't read. So we are going to start by talking about the releases, because as always there is plenty to discuss when it comes to them. The impending releases were first reported here on the Spoiler Warning and the Tom Colohue channels when I discussed the fact that over the last couple of weeks, Nick Khan's financial team have been putting together a cost-benefit analysis list. They do this every year, and every year they put this together with the idea being that they will essentially decide who is giving the least bang for their buck. Essentially deciding these people are not really there for what we need them for and will not be overall the help that we require. So, the list originally featured multiple names of Wyatt 6 members, but conversations with management and creative had their names removed. Essentially, assurances were given that they would be getting used a lot more going forwards. I was labelled a fraud for this report for saying that releases were coming. Now, of course, releases have happened. No apology has happened now that these releases have happened. This is not unusual or even slightly surprising to me. But we have a lot to talk about when it comes to that. Just to address the troll, Agent Harker, who clearly can't read and does not know that I left Sportskeeda to rejoin PWTorch. Someone clearly can't read. So, what I do need to say is there are some concerns overall around these releases at a higher level. The Travis Scott deal, and there is a significant amount of money and a merch deal going towards Travis Scott. And also the new deal for Logan Paul, which has not been formally announced as of yet, are big money deals. And there are some legitimate concerns from WWE wrestlers, in particular friends of those that were released, that the WWE are releasing wrestlers with a view to sending more money towards the Travis Scotts and the Logan Pauls, the big money people who do not need it, that the WWE continually fund money into. The WWE continues to make huge amounts of profit. And before we go into any details, I want to say first and foremost, all of these releases were given with the reasoning of budget cuts. The reasons that were given to the wrestlers was, we are not going to use you, so we're not going to waste your time and let you go elsewhere. So it's a difficult scenario, but everyone was given the same, even though their reasoning was not actually exactly the same. I'm going to go over everyone, starting now and give a recap a little later, as regards what the actual reasons were from the WWE. While there are some that I don't have too much on, I will give everything that I can. So be sure to hit the thumbs up. Every like really does help the growth of the channel. We have 34 on the YouTube already. We're already this close to 100 viewers. On the TikTok side, we have 92. Already got 5 people watching. And so far, 1 troll, which, as you know, more trolls the better, because it just feeds the chat rate. So good luck to all of them. I will be going through as many of these as I can, then catching up with the chat. I can see a lot of chat rate in that chat, so thank you to everyone who is, supporting and saying hi. Please keep that coming, and give me your live reactions as they happen. I'm going to start with Dakota Kai. Dakota Kai is one I mentioned last week as potentially being at risk because of her injury record, and this is the main reason that this has happened. Dakota Kai has been incredibly unlucky in her time on the main roster. She has spent significantly more time injured than not injured. And unfortunately, the decision by the WWE was that she simply wasn't giving them what they required. The idea is similar to Tegan Nox, that she will never be fit enough to be a worthwhile member of the main roster and take someone else's spot. This is also the main reason she did not win a mid-card championship when she went pretty far in the tournament for one. Dakota Kai, unfortunately, is a victim of circumstance because her most recent return from injury almost immediately resulted in another injury, and she has simply not been able to return. I've got a little bit more as regard damage control later, but for Dakota Kai, it was very simply she was not available enough, and the WWE believed that other people are more deserving of the spot than a continued attempted push that does not pay off. There is naturally a concern that she'll go somewhere else and be fantastic. However, the WWE believe it is worth the risk. So Dakota Kai is said to be understanding of this, but I don't have any more details on this at this point for Dakota Kai. As regards Braun Strowman, the situation is somewhat similar, but this has been actually coming for a while. Braun Strowman's contract was not renewed. He has been let go. And for Braun Strowman, this comes down to essentially a very early decision to go on social media and be negative to high-flying wrestlers. This resulted in a number of wrestlers not wanting to work with him. His punishment was a tag team with Ricochet. Now, he was able to get that over, as was Ricochet. But overall, it really stunted his development and prevented him from being a serious contender. He is, of course, a former WWE Universal Champion. He's been released before as well. So opportunities are likely to come knocking very quickly, as they will for Dakota Kai. But with Braun Strowman, he fell into a similar position to what he himself was aided by quite recently. When Braun Strowman was on the up, it was people like Mark Henry and people like The Big Show who were helping make his name. With Braun Strowman, as his contract was winding down, he was making the name of Jacob Fatu. So he was already being positioned as jobbing on the way out. The WWE never really got behind him in the last few months. And essentially, he was by and large forgotten about in the same way that he was released right after a major World Championship match with Drew McIntyre and Bobby Lashley. He was used as an enhancement talent, and they all said goodbye. Shayna Baszler. This comes out with a number of things, and a lot of it actually does come to something I mentioned last week. The WWE have maintained an interest in Ronda Rousey since the day she left the company, and the WWE have been highly invested in potentially bringing Ronda Rousey back. One of the main ways in which they tried to make WWE as appealing to her as possible is by keeping Shayna Baszler there, even though she's unfortunately been on these lists before. This comes down to poor booking, I would say, because she was capable of a hell of a lot more than they gave her. The writing was on the wall since Sonya Deville left, and unfortunately I do have to say I don't necessarily expect Zoe Stark's contract to be renewed. Her advantage for Zoe Stark is that her current contract is for a lot less money than Shayna Baszler ended up on. The WWE did recently make an approach to Ronda Rousey. They were rebuffed, told that she wasn't interested, and the decision was made at that point to let Shayna Baszler go. Shayna Baszler has had some very good times in the WWE, but with Julia, with Roxanne Perez, with Stephanie Vaquer coming up, it was decided that they needed to essentially get some women out of the way. And this is kind of what I've expected for a little while now. And in fact, what I mentioned way before we were talking draft, back in January, I expected the road to be cleared for a lot of female call-ups. This is also the reason that Caden Carter and Katana Chance were released as well. A tag team which at times have been competing for championships, have a decent entrance, but were never considered as anything more than a filler act. So there was no intention to push them. The WWE did not necessarily believe they got over or were able to get their personalities over, but when it comes to Caden Carter and Katana Chance, they simply weren't that wanted by Nick Khan. Triple H is said to have fought for these. He may have fought for others, I don't have news on it, but he's said to have fought for these two, but was not able to pick up the win on this one. Cora Jade is up next, and this one is a little harder to work out. Now, she has made it very clear and very loud that she has had issues backstage, and it is a backstage issue that was believed to be the cause here. Now, there's a number of different concerns that were raised. I don't know all of the details on this, but there was a consideration that Cora Jade was unlucky with injuries, unlucky with the timing, and whenever they were ready to give her a big push, there are some in WWE who believe she simply wasn't ready for the spotlight. She is said to have not followed instructions. Now, I'm not going to sit here and say that that's a bad thing. If she's not willing to follow instructions, it may be that those instructions were bad. And honestly, when it comes to Cora Jade, the WWE largely seemed to believe that she didn't have the attitude to succeed. There will undoubtedly be more to come from this. Cora Jade will undoubtedly be monetizing her time there. I don't necessarily expect Cora Jade to be returning to wrestling quickly. So for Cora Jade, I expect her to take her time picking her next step. Many of you are already aware that she's vocalized what it is likely to be. We have 125 people watching on YouTube, 42 likes. That's only a third. Let's keep hitting those thumbs ups and keep that chat rate going. I can already see how many people are chatting away, and I very much appreciate you. Once we've got through this list of releases, I will be covering everything you're saying and catching up with the chat. So please don't delay. Once we have gone through the full list, I will be asking for your comments so that I can then comment on those and respond to them so that everyone knows where we are. Everton says, shocked Natalya was not on the list. She hasn't been on TV for a while. I've mentioned it a number of times now. Natalya's contract is largely coaching, and thus she was relatively safe. Gigi Dolan, someone who essentially has not been focused on since we saw Mandy Rose leave the WWE. And when it comes to Gigi Dolan, with Mandy Rose no longer available to be in her corner, it looks like nobody was. A very small amount of people in WWE backed Gigi Dolan. Gigi Dolan is said to have had her own methods and her own intentions with the character, and to have become frustrated when she did not get the opportunity. When she did not get the opportunity to be herself. She found NXT restrictive, or so the rumours are. And this did mean that the opportunities that were given to her, she was not able to capitalise on. There are disagreements between NXT management and a number of the people in this list. In the last year or so, creative had nothing for Gigi Dolan. They attached her to a number of other people in the attempt to keep her relevant, but ultimately it was decided she was not in a position to stay in NXT and also not ready for a call-up. So Gigi Dolan was let go with that in mind. Carl Fredericks, Eddie Thorpe, was said to be a similar position. They simply had nothing for him in WWE and nothing for him in NXT either. So it was decided that he wasn't going to be continuing with the company. This one has come across a lot more mutual. He did work with New Japan previously, and the intention seems to be to have him return there. For Eddie Thorpe, it was not necessarily personal issues. Everyone seems to be in agreement when it comes to this one. He simply wasn't happy in NXT. The main roster had no intention of using him yet, so he wasn't going to stick around. Jakara Jackson, similar situation. There is a lot of people in this list. In fact, the next few, Riley Osborne, Oro Mensah, Javier Bernal. It was simply a case of WWE needed to clear out NXT to make room for the wrestlers coming up. They also needed to clear out the main roster to make room for the impending draft. And when they started clearing out the main roster, they realized that they were not going to be refilling it with any of the people in this list. While they were certain who they were not going to be using, they decided to say goodbye. Jakara Jackson is someone that the main roster simply didn't want. Riley Osborne, Ora Mensah, Javier Bernal, much the same situation. As I scroll down, we get to even more of these. Joe Coffey, Mark Coffey, Wolfgang. Pardon me. Joe Coffey, Mark Coffey, Wolfgang. So, Gallus. How they were still there, I don't even know. The WWE years ago decided that they had nothing left for these guys, and it seemed as much as anything, there are some in WWE who believe that what they were doing was being kept around as a favour to William Regal. Nick Khan eventually decided to get rid on the basis that he saw them and realised they were still around. So they've been on the list almost every time, and it was finally time to say goodbye. This one is believed to be in the best interest of literally everyone, because Gallus have nothing to do with WWE, nothing to do with NXT, so they'll go out into the UK scene and probably start making a name for themselves again. There was also some concerns back in their NXT UK days that their names were somewhat tainted because of speaking out. There's a number of other wrestlers still in WWE whose names were also believed to have been a little tainted in that period. WWE decided to push through with a number of them, but with others, it has seriously prevented them from making significant appearances. Danny Palmer is on this list. However, to be clear, I don't have information on Danny Palmer. I have absolutely nothing to offer here, and I do apologize to Danny Palmer for that. I've not been able to get any significant answers beyond cost cutting, and it seems like that might actually be the reason there, that it was simply cost cutting. As regards a number of others, I've mentioned a couple there whose contracts are expiring rather than necessarily being released. Two more to mention at the end here. Shotzi, who I can see, Aaron, you're talking about there. Shotzi was one who was moved down to NXT because WWE had nothing else for her. There was a couple of people who were really trying to push for Shotzi to get more opportunities. Ronda Rousey was one. She has left the company. Becky Lynch was one. She left the company for nearly a year. After that, she returned to NXT, and there didn't seem to be anyone willing to back her. This is unfortunately a difficulty we're having with NXT right now. With people so young and so inexperienced, with so many women coming in, it's such a strong position. It does mean that they will eventually have to start saying goodbye to people like Shotzi, who did have an upside, did have a lot of talent, but who unfortunately had a couple of notable botches and a couple of people who lost faith. Shinsuke Nakamura's name is also on the list. I've seen this one originally reported by Wade Keller, former boss of mine at PWTorch. I believe it was disputed at the time by Fightful Select. Shinsuke Nakamura, to my knowledge, is having his contract slowly run down. There is one more I want to discuss that hasn't been mentioned by anyone, that really needs to be mentioned. I've reported on this numerous times. There is one more person whose contract is being slowly and quietly run down completely. One more person who the WWE is trying to forget about as fast as possible. And that is Brock Lesnar. Brock Lesnar is someone that the WWE will just quietly let fade into obscurity and vanish entirely. The WWE are happy with that, and that is one of the reasons you've not seen that name pop up anywhere else. But I've been saying for years now, Brock Lesnar's contract will slowly be forgotten about. Thank you very much, Aaron, for the heart to become the member of the fan club, for the flame heart, and for the roses. I appreciate you. Thank you very kindly for those donations. We're doing very well on the TikTok side right now. 594 likes. Got 6 people watching there and 6 people in the fan club as well. We have now reached a new peak, a new record for basically so far this year for viewership. 145 people watching at once, and that is because of so many of you hitting that chat rate. Be sure to hit like if you haven't already. Now we have gone through all of those releases, so I'm going to read out the remaining headlines. There is still plenty of news to come. If you are just joining us, we will be recapping all of that release information shortly, but we also have news on the future of Damage Control, in particular some doubts about Kairi Sane. Meltzer's claims that we're incorrect about the releases. A number of WWE Hall of Famers are upset about WWE Unreal, which is a backstage behind the scenes show covering the creative process. We will be discussing why WWE are looking for that as well. There is more details as regards the Janelle Grant lawsuit to share. It's getting a little uglier. Edge taking aim at the WWE as regards the greatest wrestling match ever, a title and a Steam title, which he is said to hold, and incorrect reports as regards Alberto Del Rio. So we're going to rumor kill and make clear exactly what the situation is there. Before we get to that though, chat, we are now free and open. I will now be able to start reading what you're saying. So if there's anything in all that you wanted me to see, please repeat it now. Don't worry about repeating yourself. Just let me know what it was you asked so I can answer it as quickly as possible. So I can see Fiend saying, how much time does Brock have left on his contract? I believe it's about a year. Joey says, do you think Apollo Crews is someone WWE will let his contract run down? Haven't seen him for a long time. WWE don't seem to have much for him. Unlimited Power says, AJ Styles still under a WWE contract? Yes, indeed he is. Eric says, sourced by Brian Alvarez. Thank you for sourcing. WWE is still interested in Ronda Rousey. I mentioned that last week as well. It does sort of suggest that many people at Wrestling Observer are watching this show. Hello, Kelly. Roy said the dialogue between Sami and Seth was very good. Definitely a promo-heavy Raw with very unenthusiastic Kansas City crowd. Backlash happening 3 weeks after WrestleMania doesn't help things. This Saturday, by the way, we will be hosting a live watch party for Backlash. Check that out on YouTube. We will be covering the entirety of the show. Everton says John Cena's 17th world title reign is now officially longer than his 16th world title reign from 2017. That did only last for 2 weeks. Beat AJ Styles, then lost to Bray Wyatt. Don't really understand why. Didn't necessarily need that one, but we are where we are. It was intended to be his final one. Juan says, according to Darby Allin, he had reached the top of Mount Everest. Great, we'll probably see him again soon. Also, that's a hell of an achievement. Joey says, how does Omos keep surviving the budget cuts? You've got me. They wheel him out for basically nothing. I can only imagine he's really cheap. James Anderson says, the Wyatt's still getting a storyline? Yes, they are indeed. Bailey says, any news beyond the Wyatt Six of someone that escaped the cut list? A little bit, yes. That will be our next piece of news, which, if you've been tracking the headlines that I've been reading, will tell you exactly who it's about. No Name says, Tom, is it true you're going to be the next Fiend? Well, for many people, I'm already a Fiend. Their personal Fiend. I'm so scary. Chris says, Meltzer said Braun was let go due to his salary. As regards cost-benefit analysis, yes, Braun Strowman was on a higher salary than many. But as I say, it was mostly due to, as I've described, several issues when it came to his social media presence and simply losing momentum. Tony says, now will they be releasing Alexa Bliss in the Wire 6 too? No. KJ says, do you think Cora will come back one day? She's only 24 or 23. Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Her time is not over. I just don't think it's now. Calvin says, WWE management should be ashamed for body shaming Cora. Bad enough fans on social media were body shaming Eddie just months ago. Unfortunately, fans suck, and at times, so does WWE. Dad says, will Jay have a match at Backlash? Doesn't seem likely at this point. Alyssa says, do you think Cody Rhodes get belt back by win Money in Bank? Don't see any by take. No, personally, I do think a briefcase for Cody would be a wasted briefcase. Sean says, do you know if they were waiting on Kairi and Asuka to use Dakota again? Kind of, but mostly no. Steve says, who wins Eurovision? Do you enjoy it? I do enjoy it, Steve. I'll definitely be watching that next weekend. I might even do some live blue skying. Who knows? I haven't heard enough of the entries to speculate. I like to hear it on the day. Michael says, anything more on Mariah May? Not at this point in time. There is interest, but she is still under AEW contract, so she doesn't really know how much. Michael also says, hoping Dakota goes to AEW. SRS seems to think she will be. What do you think? I think the first thing that needs to happen is she needs to get fit and prove she can stay fit. Noob says, I get the feeling it's time to break up Damage Control. More on that shortly. Juan says, hey Tom, do you believe out of all the releases Dakota Kai is the only one likely to sign with AEW? Meltzer believes so, since she was close to signing with them till Triple H called her back. Not the only one, no. I think she's certainly a shoo-in to go there if she can prove that she can stay fit. Eric said Dakota Kai is too injury prone but not Punk. Correct. Paul says, do you think AJ Styles will show up in TNA in 2025? I hope so, but it does depend on what happens with his contract. Ross says, back to the start for me, Tom. Hi everyone. Hello Ross, good to see you. Joey says, do you think NXT UK talents not transitioning well to LXT White and Gold played a part in releases? Yes, I do. Also, to be fair, they did not get a significant raise. Calvin says, superstars who aren't used survive cuts. How? Not everyone got released. Hector said, it's still wild to me that Gallus was only good enough to be Rock's tune-up and not a tag team that could be utilised on the main roster considering how weak the division is, but that's just my opinion. It may well be that literally working with The Rock is the reason they were able to survive it. Eric says, Cora has so much talent, she could be world champion numerous times over. Luke says, was The Rock released? No, that's not a possibility. Joey says, did Eddie Thorpe have heat backstage for his behaviour on social media? Not really. Not really. WWE is very much a Republican company by and large. Danny says, the Wyatt's moving to Raw? Not right now, no. Sid says, people, I don't want him anywhere near my TV, more so than most, but Alberto Del Rio is a AAA world champion. WWE bought AAA, Del Rio's under AAA contract, it will take several months. More on that shortly. Fiend says, Tom, do you know what WWE's plans are for the Women's Tag Team Championships since they cut from a few of the legitimate tag teams like Isla Dawn, Jakara and Katana and Kaden? They still believe there is enough. And let's not forget that what we're seeing at the moment... That was a photo. Have I missed something, guys? What was a photo? Oh, gotcha. Right, thank you. Right, okay. Ooh. Right, so, sorry, I got a bit worried there. As regards to tag teams, WWE still believe they have enough, and with the addition of several from NXT, including the new tag team of Roxanne and Julia, they believe they're going to be absolutely fine. Declan, I would say that Raquel Rodriguez is not at risk right now. She's being heavily used, she's doing good work, and she's one of their least expensive options. Yes, she has a medical condition, but it is being managed. Calvin says, do you think Shayna will go to AEW? I can see her really shining there. I'm not sure. She may well return to MMA, but I suspect she will be looking at some sort of teaching and coaching situation. I can see her definitely opening a school for MMA and wrestling. Hey, Ed, good to see you, mate. Chris says, you said that Triple H tried to keep Katana and Kaden. Is there anyone else who was released that Triple H fought for? Again, those are the ones that I had confirmation on. I didn't have confirmation on anyone else. That is not to say that he didn't. That is just to say that I don't know about it. Paul says, incredible stream like always. Thank you, Paul. Appreciate you. Michael says, I was shocked that Gallus was still a thing. Yeah, me too. Me too. Valencia says, hi Tom, does the fact that Karrion Kross wasn't released at this stage bode well for a potential new deal for him? Yes. So, there were discussions with Karrion Kross around WrestleMania time that I've been talking about. He was on the chopping block, he was at risk. When they spoke to him, they spoke about creating the viral moments, basically stating that we're really enjoying your work, but it's not really resonating with the fans, it's not getting the attention that we feel it deserves. Can you go out there and make something happen? One promo may have saved him, but the WWE may also be being patient here. So there is a negotiation ongoing. He's put himself into a good position, but he also wants to name Killer Kross back, so I'm not sure what's going to happen there. Calvin says, have you heard what Grayson said about Austin in interviews in Australia? Teaser split may be happening soon. I'm surprised they survived the cuts again. They're believed to have an incredible upside. Luke says, possibility of Braun release being a kayfabe for Wyatt 6? Zero. Hector says, I know Nick Khan doesn't really care about fan perception for the most part, but it's not the best look to have TKO report record earnings days prior to these releases. Yeah, that is what the WWE does. When they say about cost cutting, that's what they mean. They want to be able to report record earnings. They don't really care about the rest. Everton says, told Sean Ross Sapp to give Tom credit and he blocked me on X. Yeah, it's funny that. Goes on the attack, and when people defend me and prove that he's wrong, he just blocks them. Everton says, will you be doing a 2-night SummerSlam watch-along? We will indeed. I don't think Strowman's going to AEW. No, that's not something he usually goes for. Sean says, Fightful reported Chelsea Green has signed a new deal with WWE, which is fantastic news. Joey says, I'm surprised Nikita Lyons wasn't on the list since she's barely been on NXT TV. Juan says, who wants to see Shotzi versus Timeless Tony Storm? Sean says, who are responsible for the releases? Triple H, Nick Khan, TKO? Yes. Calvin rightly pointing out Nikita Lyons has been moved to Evolve. That comes with a pay cut, by the way. KJ says, I think Dakota will be one of few to go to AEW. Everyone else I feel will be benched due to not having a big run in WWE, and their star power isn't that much. I feel most will go to TNA in the Indies. Quite a few will go to New Japan. And I do suspect we're going to see Dakota Kai or Evie re-emerge on the Japanese scene, at least briefly. Declan says, I saw Bayley posting on X of Becky attacking her back in their NXT days. Funny how history repeats itself. Paul says, Wrestling Days said WWE should... Homer? Not release them until their contracts run out. Do you agree? I'm going to need a bit more, Paul. I don't understand what Homer means. Christopher Leclerc says Dakota Kai and Cora Jade will return to WWE one day because they're friends in WWE. They would still need management to be their friends in WWE. Michael says, is it a trademark thing for the Killer Cross name or is it the PG nature? It is purely the PG nature. Under Netflix, that may be changed, and they are said to be open to the possibility, but it would mean a bit of a cut in what he would expect financially. I love everyone saying hi troll and bye troll whenever we have a troll. You all know how this works, and I very much appreciate you for knowing it. First we say hi troll, and then in a separate message, you know what we say? Bye troll. Because that's how long they last. Ed already all over it. Thank you very much, Mr. Fries. Declan says, I could see Lyra winning due to Bayley attacking Becky at Backlash. Could be fun. Danny says, you're so informative with everything. Thank you, Danny. I appreciate that. I try my best. Marcel says, hope for a punch for Aleister Black like the big... Oh, a push. A push for Aleister Black like the big push for Jacob. KJ says, as far as I'm saying, it's bad that TKO flexes their high numbers. WWE is making all-time numbers before TKO flexed the numbers and still made cuts. Yeah, this is a WWE strategy, not a TKO strategy. Chris says, it seems like most of the people Triple H brought back in 2022 have been released. Do you see the Garganos, BFAB and Cross and Scarlett re-signing soon? I see the Garganos, I see Cross and Scarlett maybe, I see BFAB less likely. Calvin says there was a rumour they may be setting up for Wade Barrett to take Pat's place after Pat's attack before the match. Have you heard? I haven't heard that rumour, no. Hector says the craziest part of these releases is that no matter how many times people are released, WWE will always be the goal for possible free agents or young indie wrestlers. Yes. Yeah, that's how it goes. WWE are still the top name in the industry. No one has ever really threatened them since WCW and Eric Bischoff. AEW gave it a damn good go. They unfortunately did not succeed. We have just hit 1,000 likes on TikTok. Thank you everyone for your continued support there. We are also on 153 people watching. We actually peaked at 157 on the YouTube side. That has led to 61 likes. These numbers keep going up for a very simple reason. You guys, you keep hitting like, you keep boosting chat rate, and you can see the results. Every little does help, and every little does massively support the growth of the channel. So thank you to all of you for continuing to make this happen. KJ says, I don't know if you'll agree, Tom, but a lot of fans only pretend to be outraged over some releases. Most people don't even talk about wrestlers until they're released. I would agree, depending on where you're looking. Twitter, as we know, is a hellscape. and fans decide to be immensely reactive because it's really important to them. Joey says, is Aleister Black going to be feuding with The Miz, or was it a one-off match to reintroduce Black? I think we know what the feud's going to be, and it's not The Miz. Michael says, WWE either needs to go all in on the women's tag division or get rid of it. Declan says, no cherry coke. No, I've got lemon Fanta today. KJ says, will these angry fans follow these talents, buy their merch, go to their matches? Probably not, and that's not unfair. Alyssa says, when do you see Cody Rhodes? A few more weeks, yeah. Joey says, why are the women's tag titles still a thing despite half of the division being let go? Because WWE still believe they have enough people for it. Declan says, I could see Becky handcuffing Lyra and Bayley at Money in the Bank and winning the briefcase. So the same way a while ago that Io Sky won it by handcuffing Becky and Bayley. There might be a reason you're thinking that. I've been told I'm not allowed to beg for likes. And if you'd like me to stop begging for likes, be sure to hit like on this video. Calvin says, on a scale of 1 to 10, how well do you see Austin Theory's face run going if the split happens? And if it's still there by fall, you're asking me to make a guess based on an assumption. At the moment, it hasn't happened. And unfortunately, it seems less likely every single day. Maggie says, aloha Tom, glad to see you doing so well. Respect. Thank you, Maggie. Appreciate you. We have done extremely well so far this year. And honestly, I'm thrilled with how things are going. It is mostly the continued support from everyone here making it happen. KJ says, Dutch and Vincent of AEW, aka The Righteous, have been moved off of AEW's roster page. Usually how AEW releases people doesn't go public, they just disappear off the site. Yep, the WWE essentially do the same as AEW, but AEW don't do the releases, they just let people's contracts run out. It is fairly regular, and AEW have been cost-cutting for a number of years. Aaron says, what were your thoughts on the dead show on SmackDown after the release's bad form? I wouldn't say it was dead, I'd say the crowd wasn't great, and I would say they didn't give you the best of matches, but I would say it did push us closer to a rebuild of the women's division on SmackDown. I think in general we continue to see a lot of focus on Jacob Fatu. I'm happy overall with what we got, it just felt like it was a rebuild show. Got it. Paul says, Wrestling Day said WWE should honour wrestlers' contracts and not release wrestlers until their contracts are up. By and large, yes, I do agree with that. Joey says this must be the same troll that demands an apology to Meltzer. We have more Meltzer. Yes, it's McCade. I have covered the releases. By all means, you could rewind right to the beginning where all of it is, or stick around. I will be doing a recap once we've got through the rest of the news. Hector says, I have a feeling they expected this, but man, Jacob Fatu is immensely over. No matter if he's technically a heel, he's just a badass that can go on the mic and in the ring. Right, I want to get to my next piece of news. Please do keep that coming. And I'm also going to do what I normally do when it comes to the goals. Put on the lowest possible goal, which is for a £2 donation, a singular £2 donation. What I'm doing with that, as you know, is not asking for it, just putting it on there to remind people that it is an option should they choose to use it. So it's an option should people choose to use it. The next piece of news is as regards the future of Damage Control, which is in serious doubt right now, especially after the WWE releases. The future of Damage Control is in doubt as Kairi Sane's name was also said to be on the list of people to consider releasing due to her own, considerable list of injuries. Asuka is still likely to return, but is more likely now that she'll be independent. If Kairi Sane is retained, it would be with a view to Asuka and Kairi Sane returning together, becoming once again the Kabuki Warriors, and entering the women's tag team scene, potentially feuding with Liv Morgan and Raquel Rodriguez later in the year. However, WWE is simply not confident that Kairi Sane will be recovering to the level that they require, and this is, unfortunately, something that they were very aware of when they brought her back. WWE simply are not confident in anyone but Io Sky from Damage Control, and Sky is proving that she does not at current need backup. There is unfortunately something quite negative that I do have to report, which is undoubtedly, if it makes its way back to the person in question, going to cause some upset, but I do need to report this. Io Sky's recent promos and airtime have also included a quiet examination of whether the group still needed Kai to be the mouthpiece. Io Sky didn't know that, but her strong performance on the microphone was the beginning of the end for the faction. It convinced the WWE that they didn't need Dakota Kai, and there are now some serious questions as to whether they need Kairi Sane. She is not at current been released. However, they are not intending to add injury time to her contract, which will mean that it does run out relatively soon, unless she is able to sign something new, because she's able to get fit and prove, much like Dakota Kai, that she can stay fit. That is a challenge for a number of wrestlers who are currently injured who have not been released. Ooh. Calvin says, I have a feeling the trifecta of terror will make their presence felt in a big way Saturday. That's apparently a question mark, but that's a statement for me. No Name says, Tom is such a legend and watch the pig. Thank you, No Name. Maggie says, you deserve every like. Love it. Thank you, Maggie. I appreciate you as well. It's McKay says, didn't Abaddon get released from AEW, but she's still on the active roster page? It was reported that she was released, and yet still on that roster. The other Mike says, what up, Tom? You've been to US? When are you coming back? I don't understand what you mean. I haven't been to the US recently. Last time I was in the US was 2015. Sid says, the YouTube stream is going perfect. Thank you, Sid. Calvin says, this is the first time in 3 years that Backlash is on Mother's Day weekend. Not in the UK. In the UK, Mother's Day was a while back. I appreciate it, McCade. Yeah, happy birthday for Thursday, Declan. Always let me know when it's your birthday coming. I want to say happy birthday to you guys. Juan says, about an hour ago on Twitter, Cora Jade tagged Julia Hart for a match. Maybe AEW, perhaps. Maybe so, because I gotta be honest, I'd watch the hell out of that. Fiend says, how bad is backstage morale following these releases? It's the same hit it usually is, unfortunately. There was a small number from the main roster, and some of them weren't that well known. But it's hit some other people hard. Io Sky losing Dakota Kai, she's not happy about. Bayley's said to be quite upset, especially with it happening again as well. So it's a difficult one. Noob says, like I said, damage control is nothing but collateral damage from day one in 2022. And also, you know, all the wrestling. Galvin says, superstars are going to have to do everything they can and put in work to save themselves from being released next. Mike Brown says, all these rumours about Bliss taking over the Y6 is crazy. Do they not know the only reason it worked was because Bo was Bray's brother, then creative about killed it? It's McKay says, do you know anything news about the women's tag division? Yep, I've covered a couple of bits on the tag division, particularly stating that the WWE are confident that they have enough people. So it will very much still be continuing. Everton says, was Damian Priest crying on SmackDown? The LA Knight promo looked like he was. I won't go that far. I mean, it was a decent promo, but sometimes you look at LA Knight and just tears stream down your eyes. Declan says, any news on Becky Lynch? What news are you looking for, mate? She's there. Sean says, knowing the concussion injury Alexa had, I'm surprised she hasn't been deemed injury prone and on the release lists. She was deemed injury prone for a number of years and wasn't allowed anywhere near a championship because of that. What got her out of that was Bray Wyatt. As regards release lists, she is too valuable to the WWE, even just in merch, to be a likely name there. Dave Meltzer has put forward a absolute garbage claim that multiple wrestlers were released because of a perceived laziness of the talent in question. This has naturally been fed back to those wrestlers, and they not only believe it, but are furious about it. To be clear, I am assured strongly that this is not the case. It is not the case. Aaron says you shouldn't have to keep defending yourself time after time and constantly getting called out. Yeah, I'm told I was called out by someone. I largely ignore it because let them. Why would I care? Like, hatred takes effort and they're welcome to hate. That's cool. You go right ahead. As regards defending myself, my work speaks for itself. Anyone who actually does what I do, who examines what I do, who actually watches these shows, knows that it's crap that's being thrown out there. They know that I know what I'm doing. They know that I'm talented they know that I'm capable. I'm simply not worried about the opinions of idiots. What I'm more concerned about is the opinions of people here, and I can see so many of you being so supportive, including a donation that's just come through from Martin. Welcome to the show, Sir Mancunian Way. That's the account he's gone for today. Just giving me a hashtag legend, a £10 donation. Thank you for your continued generosity, sir. Please be sure to hit that thumbs up on the donation. There's already 10. Please do keep it going. And there's Chris with a donation as well. A £2 donation says, keep up the good work, Tom, the source, Colohue. Thank you, Chris. Appreciate you. Please also hit the thumbs up there. Plenty of thumbs up. 2 very generous donations. Thank you very much, both of you. Where are we? KJ says, as far as Cora tweeting at Julia, the context was Cora made a tweet telling fans to tell them where they want her to wrestle and who they want to see her wrestle. KJ also says, me. Though I don't think she wants to wrestle you, mate. Ray says, TNA have signed Harley Hudson and Myla Grace, 2 good names. Myla Grace, I think, follows me on Twitter. Fiend to Society says, when does Kairi Sane's contract expire? I'm not entirely sure on that one of the logistics. I don't have the full details, unfortunately. It's McCade. As regards women's tag teams on the internal roster, I haven't seen the internal roster for a while. Baron says, sorry, late. Hope all well, be mega busy. Wanted to say hello to you all in chat. Zipping back to the beginning, mate. Big up. Thank you, Martin. Fiend says, imagine believing Dave Meltzer. One says, Dave Meltzer, the goblin speaking lies again. It's McKay says, I don't get the people that hate on you for literally giving us the facts. It's mostly, in my opinion, a business decision. If I'm sharing news for free, how are they going to make money behind their paywalls? Throwing that out there. Just an opinion. Declan says, with Becky Lynch, do you see with more championships? Yeah, many more. KJ says, did you see Dave say Riley Osborne was cut and taken off TV due to issues outside of the company? Just for Riley to post his stitches from a recent surgery. Yeah. Good old Dave. This is one thing he knows. It's pretty much nothing. Danny says, just curious, do you see the Wyatts coming back this month? Yeah, I expect them back soon. I expected them back sooner. Maggie says, Tom, love your attitude. Just, they're jealous. Some people just hate to see people doing well. That's what I think, personally. I don't know. I'm just going to keep doing my thing. And there's 150 people in here. Reckon that's reward enough. Fiend to Society says, what's next for Lash Legend following the release of Jakara Jackson? WWE believe they can still work with her and make something of her. Sean says, a bit off topic, Tom, but Jeremy Renner, the actor who plays Hawkeye, turned down season 2 because he was only getting half the salary he got for season 1. Yeah, I applaud him for it. Hector says, Tom, do you think the Lucha Bros being said on TV by Penta was a red herring or a hint that they're actually going to pull a trigger on them being a tag team again? I've been told many times that the intention is for them to be a tag team again. And Bailey says, is Dave Meltzer's lack of awareness on WWE well known among other wrestling journalists? Yeah. Very well known. Aaron says, I personally think Eddie Thorpe had huge potential, was excited to see where he was going. Also says, do you feel there's still plenty hanging by a thread? It's only a matter of time. I wouldn't go that far personally. There are some that aren't necessarily the most secure, but I wouldn't necessarily say anyone is hanging by a thread. Spoiler warning. I am restarting the goal just to maintain the... I said start goal, thank you. Just to maintain the reminder. We also have 78 likes so far. 2 more gets us to 80. Let's see if we can do that. Right, next piece of news then before we continue with the chat. This covers WWE Unreal. Now, WWE Unreal is a new production that the WWE are putting together designed to echo basically football, or if you're in America, soccer. For those not aware, the team Wrexham in Wales was recently bought by Rob McElhenney and Ryan Reynolds. They are sponsored by TikTok, which is a great deal for everyone involved there. It also means that their work on TikTok is pushed by TikTok. But also they have a deal on Disney, which gives a real, quite honest look behind the scenes. And essentially for a wrestling show, they want the same. There is also All or Nothing, a similar football oriented show which focused on different teams. So there was one for Sunderland, there's one for Liverpool, there's one for Tottenham, etc., etc. They are trying to emulate this with WWE Unreal, where they will essentially cover almost a full season, WrestleMania to WrestleMania, of WWE programming, making it so that what happens backstage is front and center. Now, a number of wrestlers, particularly Hall of Famers, are openly angry about this. Steve Austin is publicly angry, whereas a generation of wrestlers are furious, including The Undertaker, who has voiced his concerns to anyone who will listen. They do not want this modern approach. However, they have absolutely no say in the running of WWE, and they will not get their wish. Paul says Raquel Rodriguez wants to wrestle in AAA. Sean says a lot of Alexa fans went after a member of the crew who wanted Alexa released. Yeah, these wars don't need to happen. Aaron says, is there any truth that Roman might be forming a new faction? Faction, no. Though he and CM Punk might briefly be a tag team. There are indeed some serious issues when it comes to AAA merger fiend. The fact that they had Stephanie Vaca stood there was said to be a message being sent to the AAA locker room, by the way. Michael says, I always thought that Dave just took whatever he was told and ran with it, rather than vetting anything out. Historically, that's exactly the fact, and he doesn't really vet his sources. Calvin says, who do you see as regards to Money in the Bank? We'll get to that when we get closer. And Bailey said old wrestlers prefer kayfabe, which is absolutely correct and is in no way a positive for me. KJ says, remember when WrestleVote said Rusev would return later this year? WrestleVote says a lot of things. I'm glad I was able to report when Rusev would actually be returning. Janelle Grant's lawsuit against Vince McMahon and the WWE is getting uglier, and we are getting a larger amount of countersuits. Now, I'm just going to report based on what is known and what is factual, because this is an area where we have to be very careful with what we say. One of the accused parties in the Janelle Grant lawsuit is a Dr. Carlon Kolka. He is alleged to have administered unethical medical treatments to Janelle Grant under Vince McMahon's direction. He has started a countersuit not against Miss Grant, but against Miss Grant's lawyer, essentially targeting the legal aid and support. This, by many, I'm assured in the industry, is a slap suit designed to frustrate the process, stall the process, and continue to take Janelle Grant's name through the mud. The fact that he's going after the legal team suggests that he's trying to get the entire thing shut down. But once again, that is speculation on my part. As with most major lawsuits, we're not going to hear the results of this one for a long time, and regardless of who is right, both of them are going to come out of it with destroyed reputations. Vince McMahon didn't have much of a reputation to destroy, but this unfortunately is now Janelle Grant's life, and there will be no getting out of it. Rick answers, if Seth does add a member later on, Wardlow would be perfect, but he's still under AEW contract. The other Mike says, with the amount of stories and reports Meltzer has reported for the couple of years, why hasn't his credibility not been damaged? Why does he still have a huge following? His credibility has been damaged among intelligent people. His huge following, the people who believe whatever he says, they're not intelligent people. You will never go broke appealing to idiots. He also does a lot of telling people what they want to hear. And what they want to hear is that everyone is horrible but them. KJ says they're always wrong ever since they started this talk show. Hey, they've modernized better than PWTorch did. Only just going on YouTube? What are you doing, Wade? What are you doing? Edge has come out and said that he hated the greatest wrestling match ever. He's proud of the match itself. He didn't love that it was no crowd, and he hated that the WWE monikered it with the greatest wrestling match ever. To recap what I reported at the time, and which has been confirmed since, WWE's intentions with the phrase greatest wrestling match ever was to take over search engine optimization and Google traffic. They never actually cared about the match itself. The idea was they would take two huge names in wrestling, in Edge and Randy Orton, and make it so that if you did a search on Google as a non-wrestling fan for the greatest wrestling match ever, you would have to find Edge versus Randy Orton. And wrestling media really helped them with this. It was a tactic designed to ensure that AEW, where Edge now plays his trade, was under the thumb and forgotten about. Now, it was not a success at the time. However, when it comes to Google traffic, it was a tremendous success. WWE manipulating search engine traffic is not new. And I do like to point it out whenever it happens, because it happens all the time. As regards Alberto Del Rio. Reports that Del Rio has signed for WWE are premature and incorrect. And yes, Dave Meltzer is one of the people reporting it. Del Rio is not currently under WWE contract, and neither is anyone within AAA. AAA has been acquired, but the actual deal does not officially go through until the third quarter, which is at the earliest July. At current, everyone in AAA is on a AAA deal. There are conflicting reports that Alberto Del Rio is not getting a new deal from AAA. That is also not correct. Del Rio doesn't require a new deal. His current contract takes him beyond the expected acquisition, at which point the WWE will then make their decision. But right now, the WWE are making no serious decisions as regards the future of talent that they are not currently in possession of the contracts for. So as regards Del Rio, there is no news, and that's the only news anyone should be reporting. Roy says Hulk Hogan is delusional if he believes that his new wrestling promotion will one day stand toe-to-toe with WWE or the UFC. Rick and Alistair is neither heel nor face yet. It's not been defined. Sean says Julia is facing Jordan in a contenders match to face Stephanie at Battleground. Who do you see winning? Also, I wish they would have Julia wrestle on Raw. I think Jordynne Grace will win this one. I think Rhea Ripley will be involved in this one. And I think Jordynne Grace will come out with the championship so Stephanie Vaquer can be called up. She is considered to be the jewel in the crown of NXT right now. Anthony Phillips says, do you think we'll see Mariah May in the WWE one day? Personally, yes. I don't know if it'll be soon, but I do think one day. Rickon says, once the deal goes through, Alberto will be the first one gone from AAA. Don't see Alberto staying. Well, it depends on his contract. He can't just walk away. Maggie says, Dave again, does this man never sleep? Paul says, Naomi said on X, if I was doing releases, I would have kept everyone and just released Jade Cargill. I totally agree with Naomi. She's a heel. And she's doing the right thing for her character. For Jade Cargill, she's being pushed at the moment, and I would say she's also pretty good bang for the buck. To recap our main story for anyone who wasn't here at the start of the show and anyone just wanting a recap. The impending releases, or the releases that we've seen already, were first reported here last week by Tom Colohue, that being me, on Spoiler Warning, when I discussed the fact that Nick Khan's team put together a cost-benefit analysis list. This list originally featured multiple names of Wyatt Six members, but conversations with management and creative had their names removed. For this report, I was labelled a fraud because I said releases were coming. No apology has happened now that these releases have happened. This is not unusual or even slightly surprising to me. In fact, I did see it said earlier by Everton that on saying that I should get credit rather than abuse and harassment, Everton was blocked. You know, so that you can't say that. Nothing like good old-fashioned censorship. As regards the releases, There are some concerns by those within WWE who remain that money has been made from these releases to offer substantial deals to Travis Scott and Logan Paul. Travis Scott is earning money and there is talk of a merch deal. It is also a lot of money being made by the use of his music. For Logan Paul, a new deal has been signed recently. His first match on that deal was WrestleMania against AJ Styles, and we'll be seeing more of him over the next couple of years. A lot of money has gone to those two individuals. We start with Dakota Kai. Now, Dakota Kai is one of those that we've spoken about previously and spoken about at length. Dakota Kai is unfortunately consistently on the injury list, and this is something that the WWE are aware of and not very happy with. They have simply not been able to get Dakota Kai fit, healthy and firing often enough, to the point that she has spent more time injured than she spent fit. With this in mind, the WWE decided to cut their losses as she is still currently injured. For Braun Strowman, his return was much heralded, and Triple H was very interested in a very strong push for him, but his early social media exchanges, when he particularly called out the light heavyweight style wrestling, led him to be pushed significantly down the card. His punishment was a tag team with Ricochet, and while he did get it over, he then started picking up injuries of his own. He was never able to gain momentum, and he was largely used as a way to get other people over. His contract is being allowed to run down. He was there largely for the last few months to get Jacob Fatu over, and that was it. For Shayna Baszler, this was linked quite closely to Ronda Rousey. The WWE have been trying for a while now to get Ronda Rousey to return to the WWE. They've maintained a substantial interest. They made contact recently, were told no in no uncertain terms, and Shayna Baszler, unfortunately, has been released as a part of this because it was believed by WWE that having Shayna Baszler would pretty much guarantee Ronda Rousey would return. This is not in any way the case. WWE had nothing new for her, and I do feel it is a booking failure that Shayna Baszler was not able to make a bigger impact on the main roster. As regards Kaden Carter and Katana Chance, a women's tag team, the WWE simply did not believe that they got over to the level required of main roster superstars. That is something that we'll be referencing, unfortunately, quite a lot when it comes through this list. Cora Jade, there are believed to be some backstage issues. There are some in WWE who believe she simply wouldn't take direction, but there are others in WWE who believe that WWE and NXT Creative were not willing to listen to Cora Jade's input. The same can be said of Gigi Dolan, who, after Mandy Rose left, seemed to largely run out of people in her corner. The number of wrestlers after this: Eddie Thorpe, Jakara Jackson, Riley Osborne, Ora Mensah, Javier Bernal, who WWE simply had nothing for. They'd been in NXT for a while, and at this point NXT have nothing for them. At the same time, with a draft coming, WWE are looking at who they want to call up. None of these names were mentioned by anyone on either creative team. So knowing that they had nothing for them on NXT, on Raw, or on SmackDown, the decision was made to release them. As regards Gallus, it's been Joe Coffey, Mark Coffey and Wolfgang. They have popped up on the cost-benefit analysis list multiple times. There are some in WWE who believe they were largely kept there as a favour for William Regal, just to keep him sweet. But it's said, comedically, that Nick Khan simply didn't realise they were there, and when they appeared on the list and he saw them, he wondered why they were still there. As regards Danny Palmer, I have nothing, so I'm unable to share. I unfortunately simply do not know the situation there, so I wouldn't like to speculate on it. And then there are a number of wrestlers who are having their contracts quietly rescinded, so there is no offer coming, it is running down. Shotzi will be leaving the company in July. The WWE simply had nothing for her, and unfortunately after a few botches, a few people lost faith. Shinsuke Nakamura is not going to be offered a new contract. This was first reported by Wade Keller. And lastly, and in many ways most importantly, as I mentioned previously, Brock Lesnar is not expected to return to the WWE. The WWE are letting his contract wear down and have no interest in renewing it. Aaron says, do you think when wrestlers do outside interviews can sometimes damage their credibility within WWE? Yeah, very much so. No, Paul, I don't listen to Travis Scott music. Just never tried it. Calvin says, I wonder how Adam Pearce always has everything put together for Raw, but Nick Aldis always makes matches as the show is going. Maggie says, no change there then, Tom. We appreciate you. We know you're the real deal. Also, as regards to Shayna, says, that's terrible. I really enjoyed Shayna's work when they allowed her to work their loss. We're doing well on YouTube recently. We have reached a new peak and a new record during this show. We've had 500 views during the live. That is our most during a live. There isn't a watch party so far this year. We also hit a peak of 157 people watching. 157 people watching. A new record this year as well. So I want to say a massive thank you to everyone there. We've also hit 1,300 likes on TikTok, and we continue to grow on the TikTok side also. So I just want to take this opportunity to say a massive thank you to everyone. Even if you've just popped in for a couple of minutes, even if you've just hit like, even if all you've said is chat rate, I appreciate all of you for the continued effort and for the continued support. Until Friday when I see you again, and Saturday for our watch party, I've been Tom Colohue, you have been fantastic, and I'll see you all very soon.